Welcome to another edition of Florida Newsmakers. I'm Tramel Gomes with our very special guest, Michael Cruz, the Secretary of the Florida Department of Corrections. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Glad to have you here. Now, you run the third largest prison system in the nation with about 100,000 inmates. How is that? Tell us about your workday.
It is a challenge. When you take 100,000 inmates, 150,000 offenders under supervision, and 23,000 members. And our primary goal and focus is to provide public safety. There's never a dull moment. But there's also no greater opportunity, I don't think, for any other agency in this state to make a positive difference than there is at the Department of Corrections.
Now, you just completed what's considered the nation's largest outsourcing of medical care services, turning that over to the private sector. Tell us, how is that going to work, and what does that mean to Florida and the prison system?
Well, I'm proud to say that this past Sunday, the 13th of October, we are now fully transitioned into private health care across the state in all 48 of our institutions. Two, I think, key components in this. One is there's certainly a financial benefit and a savings by moving in this direction. We have spent as recently as 4 years ago a little over $400 million on health care. The current contract that we have right now is about $358 million. The key for us, though, regardless of who's providing the care, is to make sure that the inmates are receiving the same level of care, if not better, than what they were when we were doing it. And that has been our primary focus through this transition, but it has gone very, very well, and that's a compliment to not only our staff, but the two providers we're working with as well.
Give us some specifics. What are some expected savings that we will see out of this transaction?
I think a lot of it will have to do with the technology advancements that are out there, utilization of telemedicine and things like that, that unfortunately in the state and in our department, we just didn't have the resources to advance as quickly as many of the privates can. So there's going to be some efficiencies there. And I think that's probably the single biggest one. We had already done several things internally to reduce cost, and so the vendors had a great head start coming in because of some things we'd already done. But again, we're going to see some pretty substantial savings between what we were spending a few years ago and what the contract calls for now.
Now, this transition impacted about 2,000 state employees. What's the status on them now?
The great news is that, and that was our second focus, to make sure those men and women that had worked for us for years were taken care of. I'm proud to say that for both providers, over 90% of our members have been absorbed and now working for either Wexford or Corizon. There were many that had offers but elected not to go to work. But I do think in the grand scheme of things, in something of this magnitude, that's a very positive thing, that men and women that work for us and dedicated a lot of time to us will be able to continue to provide service with the two providers.
Now, going down this trend of finding ways to save money, I understand that you guys are undertaking some innovative ways to do that. Tell us about some of those.
We are. We've battled our budget deficit for a number of years now. And one of the things I'd like to say right up front is that the department has not sat back and looked for anyone to bail us out. We understand that we got in this position. But yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to our members across this state for the innovation, thinking outside the box.
What are some of those?
We are, one of the things we first did was when we recognized the deficit was there, we put immediate hiring freeze on all positions without an exception being signed, except for our certified staff. We took many vehicles we had in our central office carpool, and we sent 51 vehicles out to our community corrections offices because until that time we were providing travel reimbursement for them. Even understanding the age and the maintenance issues for many of those vehicles, we're still seeing about a 50% savings overall versus what we were paying. We're building sinks instead of replacing dishwashers in our institutional kitchens. We're sewing now inmate clothes and inmate bedding. And the good thing about that is not only is there a cost savings, but the inmates are doing that. So from a standpoint of when they're released, giving them a skill that perhaps they can translate back into the community when they're trying to gain employment, that's a very positive thing for not only us, but it's a very positive thing for the inmates.
Expand on that. When it comes to public safety, what is the system doing to preventing people who are released from reoffending and going back into the system?
Well, I think we've seen already that the way we have done things over the years just does not work. And if you look overall at the statistical data across the nation, one of the largest contributors to successful reintegration is some form of education. If you look at the inmates we have in our system